So welcome everyone to today's guide to the GrantStation website. I'm Jeremy Smith. I'm GrantStation's Learning and Engagement Specialist, and I host some of our online education offerings, conduct our tours, and handle GrantStation's internal and external tech and engagement issues. Joining me today is Nancy Vargo from our Member Services Department. Nancy, I want to make sure your mic is working, so are you there, Nancy?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone.
Excellent. And she is the one who actually knows even more than me about how to do a search on GrantStation and how it can be done quickly and efficiently while generating the best results. Now, today we will be spending the majority of our time exploring the new layout for your projects and the look and interface for your saved funders. The good news is that all your funders you've saved before are all still there, just in a slightly different place, and now with a lot more added functionality. So let's turn to that process of finding funding for your organization. How do you go about identifying the best grant makers to approach while staying organized during your research? So let's go ahead and start by logging in. So we go to our login section up here in the top, go ahead and type in our specific name, and then we log in. And once we've logged into the website, it takes us directly to our projects tab, which is a part of our dashboard. Anything you save or want to reference later needs to be connected to a project. And our projects tab and our search terms, which we'll talk about in just a second, really help you be more effective and efficient in your research. So once you log in, it takes you directly to your dashboard. And specifically, we're in my dashboard and we're actually in the projects and save funders. In addition, we have additional seats. This is in case you wanted to purchase another seat for someone at your organization, so the two of you can then share and collaborate through an interface here at GrantStation. Any reports you've saved are located here. Access to the Online Learning Academy is also right here. Links to the Pathfinder I mentioned earlier, along with My Profile, and My Profile is where you can change your username, you can go ahead and modify your password, change your settings, see what has been purchased historically. That would all be in My Profile. So if you need to access things about you specifically, your settings are under My Dashboard, My Profile. So that's the main areas of the dashboard, but let's go to the dashboard project page we're at right now. If you hover over this, you can see it slides right open and lets you know that you have three options here. This allows you to access your projects, your seats, and your reports. So the first here is projects, and we'll talk about more about that in just a second. The second is seats. And again, this is in case you wanted to add additional logins to your account. And then finally, we have our reports section. And this is where you have any saved reports from our grant diversification assessment, along with any of our benchmarker tools. We'll visit these a little bit later in today's session. So let's go ahead and start. We'll go back to our projects tab right here. And again, just clicking on projects pulls that up. Here's our scenario that we'll be using for today. It's a project that focuses on expanding pet adoption, spaying and neutering, and animal cruelty interventions. Some of our animals are rehabilitated and trained as emotional support animals for seniors at independent and assisted living centers in the community. So that's sort of our scenario that we're using for today. This description is really just a high-level overview of what you're doing with your project and what some people would call your elevator pitch. And it's what our system will use to create search terms that are a good fit for your specific needs. Now, alternately, you can enter in some keywords that represent what you're trying to do. You can even put in your website and have it parse that content to find search terms that fit. So let's go ahead and make that project. So we'll go ahead and click on Add New Project. And this is where you'd put that information. You can give it a name. You could add in your budget and either specific information. And then you can go ahead and put in where is your work being done. So that little scenario that I just mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. I actually have it typed up in another project, but I want to show you the entire process, soup to nuts, so you know exactly what to do when you're making a new project. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to copy that little thing I just read you, and we're going to go ahead and make a brand new project. So again, I clicked on my project icon here on the left-hand side. I'm going to click on Add New Project. So I'm going to give this a project name. In this example, I'm just going to call this New Project. And then the budget we'll leave blank for now. But where is your work being done? Well, I'm focusing on the US, as I mentioned, or I haven't mentioned yet. I'm actually going to be doing this in Pennsylvania as my focus, and I can add that state here. And I can go ahead and click on Next. And at this point, this is where I can put in that area of interest, or in my opinion, I think the best way to do it is put in a little elevator pitch that you've got. So I went ahead and copied it and I'll paste it right in here. But again, you can also enter in your website URL. And what this will do at this point is it's going out there, it's looking at these search terms, it's comparing it to what's in our database and giving you the best possible options for search criteria to use when you do your research. And it takes a few moments because this is AI and it's going online and it's grabbing the information and it's seeing what we have in our database as far as search terms, then search criteria that match what your specific need might be. So now we've got our areas of interest. Now these are sort of the things that we want to focus on as we go in, as we go about doing our research. So it starts off the list of terms to choose from, and we have our primary terms and our secondary terms. And if you're wondering why it chose a certain term, you can hover over it right here and it lets you know based on why, this is why I recommended this. And again, primary terms are the most direct and secondary are ones to consider in case you haven't thought about them. So animal welfare, it directly matches our project's focus on pet adoption, humane education, spay and neutering programs, animal cruelty interventions. Perfect, that's a good one. Animal-assisted therapy and service dogs, the training and rehabilitation of animals as emotional support companions for seniors. That's also a good fit for our need. Also, seniors in the aging. Yep, because it tells us, based on the information I gave it, the rehabilitated emotional support animals are specifically serving seniors in independent and assisted living centers. So if we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the other search terms, we have environment and animals general. And we also have mental health. That's one I didn't consider was mental health, but it says it's pertinent because emotional support animals are used to improve seniors' psychological well-being. That's true, connecting to counseling and mental health treatment, therapy outcomes. Okay, those are all good options. And here's some secondary options. We have environmental education, health and wellness general for social services, target populations general, and community development general. These probably aren't as good of a fit because they're more general because it's a broader category. But if we're finding we're not getting enough results, we can go ahead and delve into the general section and look at it closer that way. So at this point, we can go ahead and apply these terms and save it to our project. We can make modifications to it as well. So let's go ahead and save this to our project at this point. Again, this is a new project that I just made. Once we click Save Project, it tells me I've made a project. It's been saved to my dashboard. And I can go ahead and close this box to find funding opportunities in our charitable search section. You can, of course, make changes to the project. And also based on that, we have search results. So we can go directly into this, and I will in just a minute. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about search terms, because also occasionally you'll be doing a search and it won't yield any practical results. And often that's caused by not having the right search term. So let's take a look at the search terms that we use here on GrantStation. I already have that open right here on this page. So our search terms section really contains descriptions of the key terminology that's used on our website by our researchers. And this is the same terminology used by the grant makers themselves. We've already done the work of interpreting the various languages funders use and streamlined it into our search system. Now, to use this area, you simply enter in a keyword right down here, and then you can see which categories you can check while you're searching. Then you know you're on the same page as the grant maker. So let's go ahead and look up spay, because that's one of our specific focuses here. So I'll go ahead and type in spay, and we'll click on apply. So this is going through our I think it's 230 different search terms that we have at this point. There's quite a few. And it includes all these various specific topics, but they're not limited to just one topic. So spay is actually located right here under spay and neuter programs, which is a part of the animal welfare topic, which is under the environment and animals category. So this is what we'd want to go ahead and select as animal welfare when we're doing our research. Then we know we're on the same page as the grant maker. We've already done the work of interpreting the various languages funders use and really streamlined it into our search system. So let's go ahead and go back to our project. I'm going to go ahead and close out this window. And then we're back here on our little project page. And let's take a look at sort of some of the results based on our search terms. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this little pop-up that came here. So here is our search based on those search terms that we pulled up specifically. Since we're doing a US-based search, It took us directly into our US charitable database to see the results. If at any time you want to run another assisted search using those keywords or the information, that elevator pitch about your organization, you can click on Help Me Search. That'll let you go right in and do another search and save that to your database as you want to go forward. Now, many of you at this point, I'm going to go ahead and click on our Projects tab, go back there again. Many of you already have a GrantStation account, and you may be wondering where all of your saved funders are. Well, we have moved them all to unassigned funding opportunities, and that's where you can locate them. Now, this includes information that you've added to a given funder through the My Plan section, which is the previous section that we had here, and we've all streamlined it into this new interface. So these are all of our unassigned funding opportunities. As you can see, I've got a couple in here. We have AmCore Cares. I haven't done anything with that. Here's Community Foundation for Monterey County. I've done a couple things here, and we'll talk more about this later. Here's our foundations. Here's everything that I've saved to my dashboard. And at some point it was saved, and now it's been moved into unassigned funding opportunities. So everything you've saved is here. If you didn't have a project associated with it, it's in this specific project. Now, there are a few options you have at this point moving forward regarding these saved records. Now, you can simply rename this entire section and just call it saved funders. So we can go into edit. We'll just call this, we'll just even call it funding opportunities at this point. And we'll go ahead and click save. Then once this is saved, we have now changed that unassigned to funding opportunities. If I go ahead and click on the projects tab at this point and reload it, we can see there, funding opportunities. And as you can see in this description that automatically filled in for us when we did the transfer to this new look, this project includes all the saved funders that you've had in your dashboard before our update. So that's an option that you have to save all those existing funding opportunities. However, to save new funders, you'll need to create a project and then save them to that. You can't save any new funders to the funding opportunities folder or the unassigned because that's been locked. So now you can go ahead and just add new ones to connect to that. You can have up to, I believe it's 50 separate funders saved to a given project. So let's say you had 50 here and you wanted to save another one to it. That would then be 51 at this point. Nancy, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to, if you could just go back, I'm sorry, to the funding opportunities. If you looked at the description in there, there are some bullet points in there to help you also with that unassigned funding opportunities.
Yes, you are reading
Sorry
my
about
mind.
that.
No, you were reading, that's exactly where I was going next. I was just wanted to go there for a second. So let me go ahead and jump back in here into our funding opportunities. So yeah, the bullet points, I'm sorry, where would you like me to go to show that?
It should be in the edit. If you click edit, and then in that section, there's those 4 bullet points. Those will help you also maneuver through this funding opportunities, unassigned ones, if you have them.
Exactly. And this is like, for instance, the information such as, everything that you've saved before is here. This includes any saved criteria as well. As you can see, if I click on saved criteria, I don't have any here because I went through and cleaned it last night, but this is where that would be. Again, if it's not associated with a specific project, everything is in this unassigned directory, which we renamed to funding opportunities. So if we go back to our saved funders, we have that option to take a funder and move it somewhere. So we can move AmCore Cares to a specific project, say my animal welfare project, and move. And now that funder has moved to that project. So you can move them to various places. You can also copy them. So you can copy them from this location to another location. And in case it's not a good fit for you, for instance, I saved this one back in 2022, as you can see with the date here, I can go ahead and delete that. Now we'll come back to this a little bit later, but I wanted to address this early so you know that everything you've done before is still saved, it's just living right in this location. Now let's go ahead and go back all the way to our actual search that we had. So I'm going to go ahead and close out a couple of these windows here, and we're going to open up, actually my animal welfare project I've already got made, so I'll go ahead and open that one up right here. And I'll go to my saved criteria. And I've got my main criteria that I've saved right here. I'll go ahead and click on the search section. And at this point, we really, I hope, have a basic idea of what a project is and how important it is, and understand the basics of the search terms here at GrantStation. So let's dig a little bit deeper with a direct look at our U.S. charitable database. And we're not only going to create a manual search criteria and fine tune an existing search, we'll look at some results that fit into our specific needs. So if I go ahead and scroll down here, I'm going to go ahead and tag in Nancy and have her walk us through this section.
Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, so I'm just going to cover some of these items that we have when you search for these funders manually. Jeremy went through the Help Me search, which is the assisted search, but you still need to have some understanding of how to create your searches and manually doing that. You can follow these steps as well as when you want to make some modifications to your assisted search. As we always know, that the assisted search may not always cover everything that you are looking for. Um, so our charitable database does provide thousands of funder profiles, which Jeremy had mentioned. We have a wonderful research team that actually creates these. They're human beings, as we like to say. It's not all AI generated. So these researchers are searching for profiles and grant making entities that include your independent foundations, family, community, corporate giving programs, faith-based grant makers, and giving circles, and then also associations with grant making profiles. So I'm going to get into this search. So Jeremy has this wonderful search of right now that he created, which was done with our assisted search. Um, you can see there's 335 matches. That may be a considerable amount. You probably don't want to read through 335 grantmaker profiles. So what I would suggest is we narrow these results down. We have quite a bit on the side on the left side under filters. Um, so you can always adjust this by changing your geographic scope. Right now we have national, which national will include any funder that says they give in the entire United States. So one way that you can reduce is if we just want to first look for funding that's in Pennsylvania. You can always add national back. I always tell people you're not going to break anything. Here's where you can add and remove things just to see kind of what your numbers are doing. So based on removing national, you can see that number went down to 158. Um, right now, this filter is based on we're looking at a match any, and we have a match any and a match all functionality. A match any is where it'll look for any of the items that you have up in that filter box. So you may see a funder that only has one of your items. So that's why you'll get a larger number. You can narrow that down even further by changing it to a match all. And a match all is where it's looking for every one of the items that you have selected. So when we change it to that, we have a considerable amount of items there. So I'm thinking we will probably get zero results. And that's because there's quite a lot of items in this filter section. So what I would suggest is let's get rid of the, put it back to match any. And let's just remove mental health, equipment. We can probably leave general operating support and then get rid of product, donation, and training programs. You can always put these back in a different search. And so that has reduced it now to 83. That's more manageable. But if you wanted to reduce it even further, we can type in those keywords that Jeremy was talking about. So he had used spay in that search term. And by adding a keyword, what that will do is it will look in the description of that funder to see if that word is mentioned anywhere in that description on their profile. So if we put spay in there and we click submit, we have zero. Um,
And that's because we have all these various search terms selected as well. And this is where what you could also do is just to narrow things even further, or not even narrow, just to make it even clearer, is to go ahead and clear everything out of here. And again, you're not going to break anything. And again, you can do to run save criteria and run it again at any point. We'll go ahead and go down to the keyword and we'll just type in spay at this point. and now we're at 49 matches.
And here's where I would maybe add your geographic scope to narrow that further. So if we added Pennsylvania, you can do
And
that.
another
And
And just one quick note, just I'm sorry to step on you, just to let people know. If you notice North Dakota here is sort of grayed out, that means there's no options for spay currently based on that keyword in North Dakota. Same for Alaska, where I'm at. But since Pennsylvania is not grayed out and selectable, that means it's an option. It lets you know as you're going, oh, okay, that's not an option. I should go ahead and back out and try a different search term. Sorry, that's all I had to put in.
no, perfect. And we just added a new feature in the geographic scope. You can now search if you are looking for a funder in a specific city, county, or region. And so if the funder has called out specific areas, you can type a city, county, or region in here, and then it'll also narrow those results down further. So if we scroll back up to the top, we have 6 matches now. And so this is probably one that's more manageable. So what I would suggest is you want to save this criteria. So, and we'll do a new one. You can do a replace if you're looking at a previous save criteria, but when you do replace, it truly does replace everything that you previously had. So you'll want to name the search criteria. We don't have a project, we're not going to assign it to a project. We're going to say we don't have a project yet. So what we're going to do is save this as a new project. And so you'll check that as yes, you'll create a project name, and then we'll save that. And so if you go back to your dashboard, to the projects and saved funders, and then click on that oh, it's already open. Click on Space Search, and then go to your saved criteria. Your saved criteria is there. So let's click search, and what that does is it opens it and runs the search for you again. And so you'll see on the right-hand side, there's these boxes with funders' names. And these are a condensed view of what you'll see. And what that gives you is just some brief notes of what their application deadlines are. And then you'll see the areas of interest. There's all of those boxes. So it's highlighting and bolding the items that you had in your search to say this funder has what you have in your filter that you have selected. Now, what's really strange, Jeremy, how come those popped up when we just have Spay in Pennsylvania?
I think mainly because we are focusing specifically on Pennsylvania as our scope. So it's pulling up Pennsylvania as well as Spay as our two
Okay,
options here.
okay. Um, and so do we have Bissell Foundation in this return?
And not in this one, but it's because, again,
It's a
records change
national.
slightly, but
Yeah.
it's a national is the focus, not just Pennsylvania. But what we can do, and this is another cool thing, let's clear everything out of here from this search. We can search by the funder name. So let's go ahead and just type in Bissell and we'll submit. And we have 2 matches for that. And I'm let you pick which is the right one, Nancy.
Let's go with the Bissell Pet Foundation.
Good call.
Let's click on that view profile. And so this is what our research does. This is their specialty. They are creating a description where it will outline the funders giving what their description is, what they like to support. We also have within that area application deadlines. We'll have their areas of interest, all of them listed, as well as types of support. This funder just really only has 2. We'll also have funder information that has total annual giving. Application procedures are also noted here, and then any requirements or restrictions that they may have, as well as contact information. And if a funder has a website, we'll also provide a link to their website. And we also have grant history. So if they have grants awarded, we'll provide that. And if they have a 990 that we can show, we will also have a link to their 990 on their profile page. And there's the website. We also have what we call grants awarded. And here you can search by tax year to see what that funder's giving looked like. You can also search by a grantee. So if there's a certain organization that may be similar to yours and you want to see if they've received any funding from a funder, you can also search by the grantee name. We just added the new feature of now you can search by city. So you can do that for any tax year as well as all tax years if you would like. We also have grant stats and we have a map of giving. So we'll show you if any US funding and if they do any international. You can hover over the shaded areas to see the funding grants that they had
They had
provided.
one in France. That's interesting. Hmm.
We also have total giving, and it's just a chart so you can take a look at what they've given over the previous years. We have median, we have an average, then there's a comparison chart, and then number of grants, and then total assets if that's available. Not all funders will have that information. We also have key leaders. Some people like to look for people on the board, so you can also do search by key leaders. So after looking at this profile, you'll make the decision if this is a funder that you want to add to your project. If you would like to add it, what you would do is you would click the little bookmark and that will save, and then a pop-up will appear and you have to save it to a project. And then if you wanted to also at that time, you could create a new project by saving it to a new project. And then you would add it. And so if we go back to your dashboard, you can go to saved funders, and there's your Basil Pet Foundation. And then here you can also edit. So if you've used my plan in the past, you can add your additional things there. Um, You can mark these profiles also as an NA if it's a funder that does not fit your needs. And you would just check the little eyeball icon, and then that will make it as an NA. One thing that's different with having these different projects and assigning a funder to a project, you can now unassign or mark NA to a funder that was in your project and it only impacts that one project. Or if you save, it only adds it to that specific project. It does not mark it as saved. Like previously, it would mark show saved, but now we've changed that so it is only aligned to that certain project. We also have the ability for you to do searches in what we call the 990 PF.
Let me get my bearings here. I have quite a few open windows here, so let me jump back to the right one. Okay, sorry about that. Here we are.
And the 990 PF is our records in the database that are sourced directly from public filings. This includes IRS Form 990 PF. The data that's provided in these filings reflects the most current information available from those public resources. Now, if we just open one file, you will see that they look very different from our GS verified, and the GS verified are the ones that our research team creates. These aren't as nice looking as the GS verified because this is information that is coming just directly from the 990. And many of these funders do not accept unsolicited applications. So that's what we wanted to have all of the funders available to you, but we have them separated right now. So if you did want to do a search on a specific funder and they're not in our GS verified, they more than likely will be in that 990 PF as they're either final action, they're no longer an organization or they're not accepting those unsolicited application. In the event you do a search in the 990 and we do have a GS verified record, we will have a link in that record so you can click on that and be taken to the um, profile that has the more detailed information. And if you pull up Bissell, you'll be able to see that. And right now, Jeremy's in the 990 PF. So you can see right here, it has the GS verified section. Just click on that link and it'll take you to the other record. One thing you can do when you're doing your searches is um, you can hide all of your saved grant makers or you can hide your not applicable. So if you're in your um, GS verified, you can scroll down and then you can check those boxes. Another new feature that we have also is you can search for any new funders. So if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, filter for recently added. And if we've added any new ones in the last 30 days, it'll have a green new button. We will also send you a new funder alert if you have a search criteria where the new funder is in one of your matches, you'll receive a new grant maker alert. It's a little different from before, where your projects is what generated the new funder alert. Now it is based on your saved criteria. And Jeremy, I'll hand it back over to you so you can cover some more things on the dashboard.
Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and close a couple of these windows that have opened as I've been doing my research because there may be quite a few that aren't quite necessary. So as we can see, here are the results that have showed up. These are all the new ones that we mentioned. And you can always, again, run saved criteria by clicking on that and coming here. One thing to keep in mind is if you are one of those people who labels stuff as new or new one or new one use this or new one use final dot dot dot, this will get messy very quickly, and I am one of those people. So I recommend when you are making saved criteria, you actually save it with a specific name. In this case, animal welfare spay is a good one, but I have two here. So I'd have to go in and modify this myself. So keep in mind, as you're saving criteria, make the names memorable. I recommend you add the date. That way you know, oh, that's from this search that I did on this date. And we're going to be adding more functionality to how search criteria works and how you can access them quicker. As you can see, this is all my animal welfare ones, but these are for other projects that I'm doing as well. But just remember, saved criteria is where a lot of the power is right now when you're doing research here on GrantStation. So if I scroll back up right now, I'm going to go ahead and move back to my dashboard. I can go ahead and click on projects and save funders. And again, as we mentioned earlier, you can develop your project descriptions, save your search criteria, save individual funders. You can rate a funding prospect and even track the status of your application process all through your custom dashboard. We've really found Now, we found a promising lead, and that was our Bissell Foundation. So we're going to take you through what you can do with that now that it's on our dashboard. So first, we're going to go to our project, and there's our animal welfare project that we saved it to. And the funder we saved, if anyone's wondering, was our Bissell Pet Foundation, and here it is. At any point, you can click this, which will take you right to that website, or right to that funder's profile on our website. You can see any specific deadlines available here. You can add in your own specific notes. You can see right here who owns this specifically. This is talking about that seat option I mentioned earlier. So the seats, if you had another person in your organization, say Nancy and I were both on this, I could assign this to Nancy, make her the owner of this, and know at a glance, oh, this is one Nancy's working on, or oh, this is one that Jeremy's working on. So it's a great way to, better use a GrantStation membership, especially if you want to have another seat for your organization and you have more than one person doing the research. Although many of us are just one person shops, and I get that, but in case you have more than one person, that's something to consider is getting another seat and being able to assign various funding opportunities to them. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other options you have here. Right here, you have the matrix, which I'll talk more about in just a second. You can also set your priority for the specific funder. We can give it a high, medium, or low. I'll go ahead and give it a high. We can also save the status, and we can go ahead and say it's on hold, not started, contacted, LOI in progress. We haven't started yet, so we'll leave that there. You can then add in any specific draft, submit, or expected decision dates. So we can go ahead and click the little drop-down menu. Let's say we have absolutely no ability to plan ahead, so we're doing everything within a week. But this is all information that you control and can change moving forward. You can also set the amount that's requested. In this case, let's say it was $1,000. And then we can then, as I showed you earlier, you can move or you can copy it as well. Now, a feature that I mentioned just a second ago is our matrix. And before we get to that, I wanted to point out the unsaved changes. So we've made some changes to this profile. And let's say we change the Henry W. Bull Foundation as well and made that a C. As we select something, it then circles it in orange, or at least it outlines it in orange, and says it's an unsaved change. There's unsaved change. Before you click on anything else, I recommend you save it. And as you can see right down here, it says Save Changes. We've made 7 changes. We need to go ahead and save them, otherwise they'll all disappear if we leave. So let's go ahead and click Save Changes. It's very quick. And now they're all in place. So let's go into the Bissell Pitt Foundation and take a look at that matrix that I mentioned earlier. Now, going to the decision matrix, this is a tool that helps you prioritize your leads so that you're focusing on those with the likeliest possibility of success with the least amount of effort. The key is really to figure out the potential return on the investment of writing a proposal and then managing that reward. So this is one of the many tools we have here at GrantStation to make your research easier. So here's a quick overview. You start off with the mandatory criteria, and once you've answered yes to both of them, you click on Continue. And this is where you get in Decision Matrix itself. You use a simple scale of 0 being least favorable, 3 being most favorable, and then you answer the questions. Are we in our geographic giving area? The answer is yes. Do we address their areas of interest? Yes, we do. We serve the target population. They don't specifically mention seniors, so maybe, but let's go ahead and put that at a 2 because everything else matches pretty well. Again, this is kind of subjective. It's up to you to go through. But then going through each of these, the funder priorities, credibility, readiness, as well as effort and timing, will leave you with a final score. As you can see, that's right down here. If I click on Done, that number is now associated with my Bissell Pitt Foundation, my matrix score of 8, and lets me know what my priority is and my status, etc. If this wasn't a good fit and I want to look at it later, I'll just go ahead and make that a C. I'll save my changes, and now everything is in place. Now, in addition to not messing, I suppose changing some of the features with your specific record, you can also play around with the order. You can filter by priority. Now, I've saved 7 specific funders. If I filter by priority and just show myself the A features, I've only got 1 A funder, and that's the American Fundraising Foundation. But this is, again, is filtering. I can also filter by number. I can also filter by the owner specifically, but I'll go ahead and click Show All so it shows everything, and then I can sort it. And I can sort it by name, I can sort it by the save date, how much I've requested, what the status is, which is very handy, especially if I haven't started yet. I can see I have a couple that I haven't started yet, but I can see I have 2 that are fully in progress right now. I have 1 that I've contacted, and again, I can add those specific notes. Here's one Nancy didn't know about, but she may know the Fittermans through her involvement in underwater basket weaving. So this is a great way to just give yourself little notes so you can see here's a good bet for travel funding. They have supported us in the past. We should take a look at them. And in addition to all this, you can always make your own private funder, just like you could. You've always been able to historically do that here on GrantStation. You can still do that here and still add all these features I just showed you to it as well. And one other thing to note is that on this saved funder page, you can easily organize them in how you want. You can also go ahead, and I mentioned earlier, I may say a couple of times just to make sure that you can actually move this to another project, or you can copy it to another project if it's a good fit. And of course, you can always delete it as well. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second, and let's go ahead and answer any pressing questions before we venture into some of the other areas here on GrantStation. I know Nancy's been working the chat and answering questions and Q&A as it comes in there. So Nancy, is there anything pressing that we should go ahead and cover as well as we're looking at our projects and our dashboard?
If we could just go back and go back to my dashboard,
Okay,
and if you click on that, your projects should appear. And if you did not have any projects that you previously had before we changed to this new format, everything that you saved as a saved grant maker will be in your, it used to be three asterisks. I can't remember what it was called before we changed that. Unassigned funding opportunities.
correct. I'll change
Um,
it back just so it's
okay,
clear.
thank you.
But this is the great thing. You can easily go in and change things back. And it may look scary, but it's not scary.
And so let's say you had 50 saved grant makers before we made this change, didn't have any projects assigned to them. They are still all located in your dashboard. They are just under the unassigned funding opportunities. And that's where you may want to create your projects, and then you can move the funder to that new project that you have created. Um, if you want, you can just leave them here, but I would highly suggest by creating those projects and then moving those into those projects. But that is where you'll find it. Now, if you feel that you had projects and they're not here, please send an email to info@grantstation.com, and then you and I can do that research.
And just to
Um,
show people while you're looking up, again, if we wanted to move this one, say we wanted to add this to our new project, if I click on move, I then choose the project. Here's the new project that I made a couple new projects, it looks like. Again, this is why I highly encourage you not to write final dot dot, version. Make sure you name things properly. Then go ahead and move it to that. And now we've moved that funder from our saved or our unassigned saved funding opportunity to an actual project that we've created. And that was our new project.
And with those projects, you are allowed 50 saved grant makers to that project. What you are allowed is 10 projects, so each project can have up to 50 funders. Previously, for those that you could save 100 uh, grant makers, and that was just the amount that you got. But now with the 50 per project, if you can save up to 500 with those projects. So it is an increase of what you previously were allowed to save versus the 100. Um, Another question, if you could go back to our saved grant makers,
Sure. For which project?
anyone. I
Okay.
just wanted, someone had asked about the dates. So you can input dates here still, draft date, submit by, and then expected decision. And you can also export your funder list to a CSV file, and that is located at the bottom. If you want to include the addresses, you can check that, and the funder addresses will be included if they have one. Let's see. Somebody was asking, why would you want to hide the save or the NA?
There's a couple ways to approach it. Um, it's more to give you the full option, to give you full power over it. Sometimes we'll be doing searches. You say you're doing the same topic and the same funder keeps popping up and you keep seeing this funder and it's starting to bother you. You don't want to see them anymore. That's where the NA feature comes in handy for that project. So then when you're doing searches for that project, that funder will not show up anymore in that project. It still exists overall in the database and you can still find it doing a different project or more of a general search, but it gives you that option to just not see it. And that does count against your 50 saved or unsaved funders for a project. So I don't use it that much just for that very reason, because there is a limit to the number you can have. But if there's one funder that keeps popping up that just isn't a good fit, or you just don't want to see them anymore, that's where the NA comes in handy. And the saved, of course, is something you want to save and then go through, like we showed you, adding in your matrix, figuring out the priority, and then adding in your various states as well.
Should also mention you can also add a private funder if there is one that you're maybe working with. You can always add that. It will count towards the 50. So Um, we do have that option that you can add private funders where maybe you've had prior approval to submit applications to. Um, Jeremy, can we go back and just show how you get to the funding opportunities? So if we just go up to the Find Grant Makers.
Sure.
So here's where you would select the U.S. charitable, Canadian, or international. And then if you just click on one of those, it'll take you to this page where you can use that assisted search where it has help me search. Or on the left-hand side, you can create your search manually.
And this is where having those search terms and understanding them really comes in handy. Because then once you have your basic search terms in place, you can quickly do a search and then find some results that may work for you, then save that criteria. You can make it new or you can replace existing. I recommend using new, having that new criteria, and then you can rerun this search connected to that project. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. And one thing to remember is that if you're doing a search for funding for any kind of project, it's important to have a solid foundation that helps you identify the best grant makers to approach. Using GrantStation allows you to apply your time where it's most effective and efficient in your search for funding. Visit GrantStation to see our latest online education offerings in the form of live webinars, interactive workshops, and on-demand learning. GrantStation.com.